Hey everybody, it's Bevin. Welcome to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevin. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. My co-host, Biscuit Reynolds, is everywhere. And so he is, of course, with us. He's my cat, by the way. If you've never tuned in before, I just shout him out at the beginning of every episode. I started when he was still alive. Now he's an ancestor and I'm still doing it. So who knows how long. But I did get a psychic reading recently where they said, you need to call in Biscuit Reynolds. Because I used to joke he was my business partner, but now I think metaphysically maybe he is. Okay, that's not the point of this episode. I aim to do a quick episode on this, a long form podcast, about maintaining our peace in the coming year and always. One of my favorite markers of my own personal success in life is my peace practice, also my body of rest. And part of my peace practice is simply residing as much as I possibly can in a calm nervous system. I lived the first, I don't know how, I'm not great at fractions. I lived until I didn't feel relaxed until I was 34 years old. That was the first time I ever remember being like, oh my God, this is what people say. They say feel relaxed. Because I was just, keyed up by early trauma experiences in childhood, keyed up by like alcoholic family dynamics and overachiever perfectionism and living out other people's good ideas for me. And just, yeah, chasing other hills of success that weren't actually success for me. So, one of my markers of success is feeling peaceful and rested. And I'm really in a period of my life where I'm learning how to pursue my goals and quote unquote achieve without burning out. And that's a new thing for me. I have some great business mentors that I work with who talk a lot about like, think about other things you succeeded at in life and like how you did that. Yeah, I did that in a totally unsustainable way. I want a sustainable, lasting success and peace in my life. And so this method I'm going to teach you today is a big part of actually how I've achieved this kind of peace ethic, this rest ethic. And I want to really give you a simplified version of it and encourage you to like make this your own, right? And I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm going to tell you what it is and then we'll talk it through. So basically the idea is we've all heard about like a morning routine, right? Maybe you've also heard about a night routine, but then I also propose an afternoon routine as well, like 3 anchor points in your day where you are going to return to yourself, return to that safe and peaceful, calm place that lives inside you. And it's a lot of healing work to cultivate that. I didn't have access to her when I was 34 and just learning what relaxed felt like, right? But I realized after doing that work that I had been in fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn mode, one of them, one of those fighters, my whole life until like I started really doing the work, right? And that was took a long time to turn the ship around, but most of the time I'm pretty chill. So, these routines, like my morning routine, like I want to advocate for a 10-minute routine for all three of these things, right? Like a less than 10-minute thing you can do that will return you to yourself. While I also say that my morning routine, and I've got a whole episode about morning routines, my morning routine itself is like an hour and a half long when I'm doing what I want to be doing, right? So like I really start my day centered and then pursue whatever I'm doing after that, right? But I just want to give you this, especially, I mean, I'm all for the asynchronous listening to my podcast. Like there's a Christmas tree behind me, clearly. I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, 2024. Goodbye, 2024. I wish there had been more to you than there was. And yet also, it was a satisfactory year. I was pretty chill and I live in a beautiful place, right? And I'm doing work that really matters to me while it is not necessarily sustaining me in the way I want to, right? I thought 2024 was going to be my year because I was born on the 24th of the month. So like that's the one and only year I get with that day. Anyway, whatever. Okay. 10 minutes a day. So, and I think this is a good time because a lot of us have a lifestyle where the period of time between Christmas and New Year is like kind of a no man's land. There's a great meme I saw of Winnie the Pooh holding a hot mug of something for the next 7 days. I won't know what time it is and what day it is, right? And so I think there's something to having the experience of just having total control over your day and like being in that space where time doesn't exist, to know what nourishes you and what brings you peace, right? Like, and is there some little morsel of activity that has brought you some of that peace over this time that you can incorporate into one of your three slots during the day? Um, there's like, I could name off a gajillion nourishing activities, but it's really up to you to decide what would be most nourishing for you at that time of day. Um, this is what and I'm also like not super prescriptive about what time I do these things, like morning routine stuff. Like the 10-minute version of my morning routine is like ideally right when I wake up. And I want to tell you that half an hour after you wake up and the half an hour before you fall asleep, those are very potent times for spiritual guidance. It's when our brains are the most malleable. This is why screen time is not a great idea right before you go to bed. I've been winding down with audiobooks and or sound healings and just really trying to turn that time into just a semi meditation. I do better at like walking meditations and listening to sound healings than I do at like sitting still and listening to a chime. But, again, like not trying to be, working on not being a perfectionist with any version of my self-care is itself a healing. So like, right, like thinking about that and like choreographing your day around these things. In the summertime, my afternoon routine tends to be at golden hour, which is like early evening around here. And in the winter time, my afternoon routine usually tends to be early afternoon. So like when the sun is still up enough that we get a good amount of light, and I usually go for a walk. I like to get out of the house three times a day, actually, at least. And so my morning, afternoon, and evening routine all involved a little touch of nature, right? Like in the morning, ideally, I'm outside sipping cacao. I love cacao as part of my morning routine. I don't always have the finances to support it, but when I do, I will always do it. And I just, a friend of mine, I won the month's supply of cacao in a giveaway. So I've been doing it for the last like 9 days, and it's been really fun. Shout out to Tamra of Mohala Yoga, who has been on my podcast. I won it from her. And I learned about cacao and the healing and the brain benefits you get from it and the mood boosting benefits you get from it. And I feel like it's just such an incredible medicine that like connects you to the earth. And so I like to go outside and sip it. And that can be like 1 or 2 minutes outside, just like greeting the day. If it's sunny here on the Pacific Northwest, which is such a blessing, Big Daddy sun, when he comes out, I really try to like go out and like be like, yay, the sun, and like have that like minute or two with the sun first thing in the morning. But even in the rain, like just like looking around and seeing the way the clouds are interacting with the land, I think is so powerful and so centering to me, and so grounding. Another first thing in the morning thing that's very essential for me is affirmations. Affirmations are statements that are in the present tense and that are positive and speak over you what you want to be true. They may not necessarily be true, but it's what you want to be true. Affirmations work, but they take forever. They don't have to take forever. Affirmations can actually work really swiftly, but like in my experience, if I'd known how long they were going to take, I would have been really regimented about them far earlier than I was. But I've been working with affirmations loosely for more than a decade, and I've been like super intentionally saying them out loud every day since probably this time in 2019. So 5 years. And yet, some of them are more true now than they were, and yet some of them still remain to be seen. So I look forward to the continual unfoldment of what's going on in my brain. But I've heard some really cool stories of people who've had brain injuries, and then when they come to, the first thing in their mind are their affirmations, the things they've been speaking over themselves for years. I've also, I think it's super important that you tell yourself who you are before you go online and let everybody else tell you who you are, because there's so many corporations that really profit off of you thinking there's something deficient about you, which there isn't. Um, of course, we're all works in progress, but there's nothing deficient about us, and there's nothing about our worthiness that is on the table. Dr. Brene Brown, your worthiness, your belonging is never on the table. Okay, so morning routine stuff. I also like to pull an oracle card. That's like, so like my main things, nature, affirmations, oracle cards. So I like to pull guidance. I usually, when I'm traveling, like pet sitting and stuff like that, I usually only have one or two decks with me. But if I'm at home, I like go to the library and figure out which one wants to be my deck today and get my guidance. So I'm like tapping in. And then I also have a practice where I'm studying A Course in Miracles. So I'm on day 150 today. So proud of me. This is the farthest I've ever gone. I've attempted A Course in Miracles many times, and so this is the farthest I've gone, and I'm persistent in pursuing it. I'm doing this is the one that has really worked for me is doing Marianne Williamson's. You can buy it for like 25 bucks. It's a whole year of her reading every day from the workbook from A Course in Miracles. And I love her takes on things, and she really does help me cement the practice in your head. And she says this work, if you commit to doing this work in A Course in Miracles, this will move your soul's progress ahead 1,000 years. Like it really is like I believe we incarnate to perfect our loving, and we're in earth. The earth plane is very challenging for that, right? So like it takes a while, or unless you really study, enlightenment in a very intentional way. So that's kind of my basic 10-minute morning routine. I do some other dawdling things that are self-care. I also have a morning prayer practice, but I don't always do it in my morning routine. Sometimes it's part of my afternoon routine. And so I do some prayers, which I've shared on the spiritual support tier on my Patreon page. But basically, they're just prayers to center who I want to be in the world and how I want to serve, and asking my guides to use me in that way. Um, so afternoon routine, typically I like to involve a walk because it gets me moving. It's like I like to do it in the sunset part of my day, meaning physically I love to see a sunset. So getting outside during sunset is so beautiful. But again, my winter time, it's not, I will go out again at sunset and watch a sunset, but I like the walk when the sun is a little higher and can have more effect on my eyeballs. And on days when I don't have this, I don't have it here as a prop, but I thought I had my sad light, my seasonal affective disorder light. So I do that on days when it's cloudy. But I'll still go out and walk because, there's so much science around how good it is for your brain. I think finding your peace is so valuable for many, many reasons, including it makes you more effective at the work you're doing. Because listen, I can do work. I can do an hour of work that is the equivalent to like another person's 9 to 12 hours of work. But I need to have enough time supporting that level of brain function. You know what I mean? My best brain hours are between 10 and 2. So usually after 2 p.m., I'm not as sharp and I'm not learning as much. And so I just want to be strategic about when I'm doing things in my day. So the afternoon routine is usually after that 2 p.m. slot. And then I'll go out and, either enjoy the sunset or just walk. I like music as part of my meditation walks, partially because I also like to dance, and dancing outperforms all antidepressants, every single one by a long shot. 5 minutes of dancing. So just FYI, a dance walk is something I recommend. But there could be other stuff that work for you, like journaling, reflecting, whatever works for you, right? Like I really like to check my values. Like I've done several podcast episodes about your values and determining what your values are. So today, actually, when I was manifesting for the Capricorn new moon, I took the time to write out my values, and I took the time to write out my identity statement, which I've written about on my blog. If you look up queerfatfemme.com/Oriki, I talk about what that is. And it's basically a statement of like who you are and what your identity is, because we rise to the level of our identities. That's from Atomic Habits. So I wrote those out, and then I did my manifestation work. And it feels I'll be honest, it's freaking exhausting to continue to manifest stuff that hasn't happened yet, just like continuing to do affirmations that haven't come true yet. But you know what? Whatever. Divine timing is bitch. Like, I mean, it's so serendipitous and beautiful when you're in it and you're like, oh my God, like time bends. Like, I've heard this a million times. Michael Bernard Beckwith talks about it a lot at church, and I'm glad he does, because he says stuff like, when things come to pass, then it will be as though like time has existed correctly, right? But like when you're in it and you're waiting for it and you're having to have patience, it's not as fun. So anyway, but it's just every time, like, every year gives me a little clarity about the simplicity I value in life, and like understanding more. Like this year I've gotten to pet sit a lot. Every pet sit has some element of like my dream house or my dream life, and has really reminded me actually a lot about how much dirt pets create like in a week. with cats. I'm like, dang, there's so much cat here. So it's just a good reminder that like in my life without pets right now, it's the first time in my adult life I don't have a pet in my home, and it is wild and weird and not as messy. Okay, so then an evening routine, and this is like a right before bed routine. I love like a wind down time. And again, like I kind of have like an hour long framework or an hour and a half long framework, morning, afternoon, evening, because my walks are probably about 45 minutes to an hour long. Could be longer. Sometimes I just like to lay around outside, and like just absorb the resonance of Mother Earth, right? So like I'm proposing 10 minutes because I want this to be actionable for you. So just like really pick the priorities and you can always expand, right? So an evening routine, if I'm not counting like wind down time, 10 minutes. I love going outside and looking at the stars. I think it is such a privilege to live somewhere where I can see the stars so clearly. So I don't take that for granted. I also live in the Pacific Northwest where, like, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes and it might change. Probably will. So, like, on a night where, like, I've gone out already and, like, it's been super overcast, I might go out right before bed and it's, like, totally clear and, like, the stars are brilliant. Last night I walked out, oh my God, and there was a shooting star. It was just like, it was so beautiful and so majestic, and I'm so grateful, right? So, like, putting myself in the path of miracles and things that light me up, right? So a night routine, I love to like go out and like, and I have a playlist called Gentle Hours. And that's for that time period of night, like after the hour of the bat, right? Like you have golden hour where the sun is going down, and you have twilight slash the hour of the bat, which I got from the House of Dragons, right? But I just love the idea because it's like when the bats are out, and I love getting to see bats, and I don't always get to see them because they're elusive, but every now and again I get to see them, and it feels so special. So, and again, it's based on where I live, right? Like I get access to stars and bats, and those are way cooler than influencer parties. I'm just going to say that. It's like I miss things about LA, I miss things about living in New York, but you can't top bats and stars and like coastline, you know what I mean? And eagles, like, man, and trees. Like in the skyline in the Pacific Northwest is so amazing because you just look and like every skyline is like these little different evergreens. Oh, it's stunning. It's stunning. And then like everywhere has its own cool horizon. Like I briefly dated someone from Kansas once who like talked about like the flat horizon line, which is its own beauty. Anyway, but you can't experience the beauty unless you put yourself in the path of it. So after the hour of the bat comes Gentle Hours, and I have a playlist called Gentle Hours, which is just songs that like put me in the vibe to be on my way to slumber. It's got like 4 or 8 versions of Terrapin Station, one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs. And Stay Gentle by Brandy Marie Carlisle, right? Like, so I just put it on shuffle, let the goddess decide. And oh, there's a really good track called Sit Around the Fire by Ram Dass. Oh, exquisite. I love it. It really reminds me that like that's all we've ever done is just sit around the fire as humans. It's one of the most beautiful and important things we do is convene with our fellow humans and enjoy fire. And I wrote a few notes about this episode, and one thing I did say as a potential part of your routine is to light a candle and stare at the flame for 60 seconds and just see what comes through and just really settle the nervous system. It's another form of meditation, but it's also a form of divination because like fire, especially if you have any strong fire elements in your birth chart, really just being like, God, if you had like a fire moon and you took the time to like for 60 seconds look at a fire, like, either an actual physical fire or light a candle and just look at the flame, that can give you so much emotional information that you might be sleeping on because it's really easy to just like have fiery emotions and then let them go. But like being present for what's actually there. Anyway, I have a water moon, so I can't do anything but feel. And I'm doing much better at recognizing my feelings, being present for them, and then letting them flow. And being present for them multiple times a day. Let's see what else for Gentle Hours. I also I've been sleeping with my phone not in my room unless I'm away from home and I need the phone as like an emergency thing. But I am really trying not to have it in my bedroom and in my space because there's like lots of science around what it does to your brain. And I remember your phone's a tool and it's not something you don't cuddle with a plunger, right? Like you don't sleep with a wrench. We spend so much time like creating an external nervous system with our phone, and I really am valuing like spending time without it, and just being present. right? And just going outside and not having the phone on me, right? Like leave it inside, go outside for a little bit and enjoy, watching the stars with a good song playing. I also like a little stretching. I'm really working on this being a consistent practice of stretching in the morning and the evening before bed. Another part of my bedtime routine when I'm really on it is to do a gentle child's pose on my bed. I'm not worried about like being on the floor or how messy my floor is, right? So I do a child's pose on the bed and I do a visualization where I go visit my inner child to get information from her and see like what's up. Because like the more we ignore our inner child, the more she hijacks your life or they hijack your life. But if you just actually make time and space, then you can just get that information. And sometimes it's actually given me good business ideas recently. It was like, let's see what happens with this. And I was like, okay. So I took action on it the next day. I'm just really shortening the time between getting an idea and taking action because I also recognize opportunity costs and opportunities only last like briefly, right? So, um, was there anything else I wanted to say about our routines? Um, yeah, I think that's it. Um, so you're cultivating peace within so that you can let all of the BS of the outside world go. And I will say with the coming astrology of 2025, we have a ton of our outer planets. I think almost every outer planet, if not every outer planet within a calendar year, is changing signs, which hasn't happened since the early 1700s. So we're just seeing a lot of reflections from past times where we've had great social movements, but social movements come with a lot of unrest. And I think one of the coolest things we can do is create and cultivate our own peace. And then we're available to pass it on, right? Like be the grounding, safe place for the people in your life because you created that grounding, safe place for yourself, right? And also remember, other people are nuts. Like they get to be nuts. It doesn't have to make you nuts. And that's like, I'm reading the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Tawwab, and it's very good. And I highly recommend doing that so you can create a container for your life. But I really think the 10-minute, 3 times a day practice is filling the container. Also, another little nugget from Atomic Habits is crawl if you must, but maintain your consistency. So, like, even if it's just like a 2-minute thing that you're doing 3 times a day, or if you only remembered once in a day, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just start again tomorrow and just keep returning to it. The key to my consistency is just starting, being sloppy, and then eventually I see the benefits and then I get more consistent. It's kind of how I started taking vitamins twice a day because I saw the benefit of, oh, when I do this twice a day, and like trying to leave behind scarcity mentality and that kind of thing. And the last thing I want you to do is just remember like nourishment is the goal from our rest time activities. So, like, do the things that bring you joy. But, like, sometimes I find myself watching TV that I don't even like. And then I'm like, why am I watching TV? You know what I mean? Can I just turn on an audiobook? Like, can I do something else that's more fulfilling for me? So just remember to just continue to, and I think this is a good time of year to just like assess like what is nourishing me now? What is like bringing joy to me? Because I'm actually really loving in this last couple months dissociating. I've been dissociating, and I like to call it disco associating, because sometimes I'm dancing, but like truly dissociating just like out of my body, checked out from reality. And I did this workshop with Dean Spade, who I love, and Jessica Lanyadoo, the astrologer, and they were talking about the year ahead astrology and the planetary aspects we're moving into. So we're moving into Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries. Neptune in Pisces. Pisces is a dissociating sign. I have a Pisces South Node, which is, I think, why I'm so good at dissociating. But it's, just remembering like what brings you joy, right? And like I feel like I've just been like getting out all the dissociating so that I can be more action oriented when all these planets are going into Aries. So, because Aries is the sign of action, it's the first sign. But also a good reminder, wintertime is for rest and for strategy. There are fig trees right now who are planting the buds that will eventually become figs that I will get to eat in the summertime. And I'm just putting that out there because I don't think I had any fresh figs this year, which is sad. But the strategy happens now in nature. And unless you're one of my Australian babes, in which case listen to this again in the summertime or in your wintertime. But I will say, Like it's just important to like give ourselves a break now, strategize, and then, take action. Because if you were sloppy doing your action over the winter, then by spring, when our energetic new year comes, when Aries season comes and the spring comes, then you're ready to hit the ground running and you've got all this consistency and you are, I love the term unfuckwithable. Like people can't fuck with you if you maintain your peace and you keep going back inside and getting your peace. So that's what I have for you. I would love to support you further in your self-care work and journey. My Patreon page, patreon.com/FKDP, which stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, is for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. Actually, that's my aerobics class. Anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness, which you can get access to at any level of Patreon support. But my Patreon is really for people who want to support me and my work in the world, maybe learn a little bit more about spiritual self-care. There's special secret episodes of the podcast up there that aren't available publicly because I have this beautiful little garden wall, which now exists, which I did a solo episode a couple episodes ago about regrets and my love life and kind of reviewing. And there was a story I referred to. I didn't give any details in there that was fresh tea for one of my longtime listeners. And they emailed me about it. And I was like, oh, I could tell this story behind the garden walls of the Patreon. So I did. So if you want like tea about my love life, it's in there too. But yeah, lots of stuff. And I'm always open to suggestions, things you would find valuable from me. If you have podcast episode requests, not just for me, but I love questions. That makes it so much easier to create these episodes, but also that would inspire me to get a friend on who can help me. Because that's my greatest form of wealth other than my peace is my friends, because my friends are amazing and they're really like why I'm really enjoying being in this incarnation. And I'll tell you the thing that showed me I had the biggest healing year this year was that like sometimes when I have like a financial setback, I really get into that root chakra scarcity mindset of like freaking out and feeling bad about myself and spiraling and like getting into suicidal ideation and suicidal thoughts because I think like if you're prone to that, that tends to be where you spiral to. And I had that happen. I had not suicidal thoughts, but I had a big like, oh no, I got to come up with $1,600 like ASAP, blah, blah, blah. How are we going to do this? And my tires and wheels on my car need to be replaced. So all that to say, I went into the forest where I would normally have spiraled. And instead of feeling suicidal, I actually was just like indignant about this timeline. And I just hollered out to my guides because prayer works. I hollered out to my guides, this incarnation is getting too hard. I need some solutions. And it was so different. Like, I think it's really worth remarking in moments in your life when you're responding to something differently, because that's healing, right? Because you're never fully healed, but you're always on a healing journey and stuff will come in to test you. And I saw a thing that like people who are really on their journey, their ascension journey, were getting a lot of root chakra like shakeups because it's like really just testing you and like seeing like, can you release the scarcity mindset and move into the abundance that is available for us? So I feel it solving, I feel the money coming through, like just bit by bit is coming through and I feel it solving. So I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that my mind is orienting somewhere else. And I've worked very, very hard for that. So I affirm because it is possible for me, it's possible for you too. So keep going. Tell me how you like this episode. Tell me about your routines, what's working for you. You can always shoot me an email, fatkidanceparty@gmail.com. If you're part of the Patreon, you can post in the Discord and chat about the episode. I really want the vibrant community from Fat Kid Dance Party is my favorite part of the class. And like being with people who are working to regard themselves with love and grace, I think is life-changing. So join us. I love you. Thanks for being here. If you want to give a one-time donation or just buy me something from my wish list, that is also appreciated, and all of it is in the show notes. So happy New Year. And my favorite joke, I'll see you next year.